Could one of the most beloved entertainers of our time be facing the final curtain call of his career? For decades, fans have turned to Donny Osmond for joy, comfort, and nostalgia. His voice, his energy, and his charm have carried him through eras of change in the entertainment world. But now, whispers of his health struggles have become louder, and a shocking truth is emerging. After a lifetime of performing, Donny finds himself at a turning point he never wanted to reach. His body, worn down by years of relentless effort, has forced him to make a decision that leaves fans stunned. He may have no choice but to step away. The thought of Donny Osmond, the boy who became a superstar, the man who grew up under the spotlight, the legend who never seemed to fade, saying farewell has shaken people across the globe. His announcement is not just about a career ending. It's about the incredible journey that led him here, the hidden battles he's fought, and the resilience that kept him standing all these years. To understand what Donny is facing now, we need to step back into the story of how it all began. From the very start, Donny Osmond's life was unlike most. Born into the musical Osmond family, he was introduced to the stage almost as soon as he could walk. By the time most kids were learning their ABCs, Donny was learning how to command an audience. His boyish smile and undeniable talent made him an instant favorite, not just in America but around the world. Alongside his brothers, he was part of a phenomenon that took the entertainment industry by storm. Millions tuned in to watch their performances, and millions more bought their records, turning the Osmonds into household names. But Donny was different. Even among his siblings, he stood out. His voice had a sweetness and strength that could stop listeners in their tracks. He had a presence that made fans feel like he was singing directly to them. As the years went by, Donny transformed from a child star into a teen idol. His posters were plastered on bedroom walls, his concerts were filled with screaming fans, and his songs climbed the charts again and again. Hits like Puppy Love captured the innocence and passion of youth, while his television appearances with his sister Marie solidified his reputation as a versatile entertainer. Donny wasn't just a singer, he was a performer who could do it all. Sing, dance, act, and charm an audience without missing a beat. For many, his rise to fame looked effortless. But what people didn't see was the relentless work behind the curtain. Donny lived under constant pressure, trying to balance his career with the expectations of being part of a famous family. Every step of the way, he had to prove himself, not just to critics who dismissed him as a teenage heartthrob, but to himself as he tried to carve out an identity that would last beyond his youthful image. Still, despite the challenges, Donny never faltered in giving fans everything he had. Year after year, stage after stage, he poured his heart into his work. Yet like so many stars, Donny's story wasn't only about the glory. Behind the smiles and the music, he carried personal struggles that few knew about. While fans saw the bright lights, Donny was often battling shadows that could have easily ended his career long before now. These struggles, both mental and physical, would shape his journey in ways no one could have predicted. And now, after multiple diagnoses, those very battles have led him to the heartbreaking decision to prepare his farewell. But what exactly were these struggles? And how did a man who seemed unstoppable find himself brought down by invisible enemies? To answer that, we must look at the moments when Donny's health first began to collide with his career. The truth is, some of Donny's hardest struggles were not visible to the eye. They weren't injuries you could see or illnesses you could diagnose with a scan. They were battles inside his own mind, the kind that left him shaken, even in moments when he seemed to be at the top of his game. In the 1990s, Donny took on what would become one of the most defining roles of his career, the lead in Joseph and the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. To the outside world, it looked like a dazzling success story. Donny had transitioned from being a teen idol into a respected stage performer. Night after night, he carried the show, singing and dancing in front of packed theaters. For audiences, it was magical. But for Donny, it was also one of the toughest chapters of his life. What people didn't know was that Donny was carrying the enormous pressure of reinventing himself. He had been famous as a boy, beloved as a teenager, but now he needed to prove that he could stand on his own as a serious adult performer. That pressure weighed heavily on him. And then, one night, something terrifying happened. Something that would leave him changed forever. In the middle of a performance, Donny experienced his very first panic attack. He later described it as feeling trapped inside a bubble that he couldn't escape. His heart raced, his breath caught in his chest, and a wave of fear surged through him with no warning. It was as if his body had betrayed him at the worst possible time. For someone who had spent his life on stage, suddenly being unable to trust himself in front of an audience was devastating. The attack passed, but it wasn't the end. Similar episodes began to follow him, striking without warning, often right before he had to perform. Each time, the fear grew stronger, feeding off itself. Donny admitted later that the anxiety could feel so intense. Stepping on stage seemed harder than facing death itself. The panic would tighten its grip, leaving him trembling, sweating, and desperate for escape. But Donny had no choice but to keep going. Night after night, show after show, he pushed himself onto the stage, even when his body screamed at him not to. The stress was overwhelming. He was battling not just the usual pressure of live performance, but also the crushing weight of expectations. Joseph and the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat was very different from the music that had made him famous. If he failed in this role, he risked losing everything he had worked so hard to rebuild. That thought only made the anxiety worse. Some days, the struggle was so severe that even simple routines became a challenge. Waking up, getting dressed, and preparing for a performance felt impossible. The physical symptoms, the racing heart, the dizziness, the feeling of being disconnected from reality, made every moment feel like a battle for control. And at that time, in the early 1990s, conversations about mental health were almost non-existent. Entertainers were expected to be perfect, untouchable, always ready to smile for the cameras. Admitting to panic attacks or anxiety risked being seen as weak. For Donny, keeping it hidden only made the struggle worse. The silence became its own burden, but he wasn't alone. At home, his wife Debbie and his family were there to support him. They encouraged him to seek help instead of fighting the battle alone. Slowly, Donny turned to therapy and began to learn coping strategies. He discovered techniques to manage the attacks, ways to calm his mind before stepping into the spotlight. Little by little, he gained back his confidence. What began as one of the darkest periods of his career eventually became a turning point. Donny made a choice. He would no longer hide his struggles. Instead, he began to talk openly about his anxiety. He shared his experiences in interviews and conversations with fans, lifting the curtain on a subject that so many others were too afraid to admit. By doing this, Donny not only freed himself from the stigma, but he also gave hope to others dealing with the same invisible battle. His courage to speak up helped fans understand that even the brightest stars can face moments of fear and vulnerability. In time, Donny's openness turned his personal battle into something bigger than himself. He showed that strength isn't about being flawless. It's about facing your demons head-on, even when they threaten to take everything away. But just when he thought the worst of his struggles were behind him, another challenge appeared, one far more physical, and one that threatened not just his career, but his ability to move at all. While Donny had managed to confront his inner battles with anxiety and panic, the years of performing, touring, and pushing his body to the limit brought about a new kind of struggle, one that was far more physical and impossible to ignore. For decades, he had danced across stages, carried productions on his shoulders, and poured endless energy into entertaining audiences around the world. But that level of constant strain comes at a cost, and in Donny's case, it began to show in the most painful way possible. By 2019, Donny was no longer just dealing with the exhaustion of travel or the normal aches of aging. The discomfort in his back and neck had escalated to something much more serious. What started as stiffness and soreness soon grew into excruciating pain that radiated through his body. It was the kind of pain that didn't just interfere with performances, it disrupted daily life. Simple movements became a challenge, and his once effortless presence on stage now came with the weight of physical suffering. Doctors ran examinations and delivered news that no performer ever wants to hear. Years of physical strain had taken a toll on his spine. His neck and back showed significant damage, and the specialists were clear this would not heal on its own. Surgery was the only option if he wanted relief, and if he wanted to prevent the problem from getting even worse. The decision was agonizing. Surgery on the spine carries enormous risks. For most people, it's frightening enough, but for someone like Donny, who had built an entire career on his physicality, his movements, his ability to perform, the thought of something going wrong was almost unbearable. What if the surgery left him unable to sing, to dance, to perform the way he had his entire life? What if the risks outweighed the benefits? Still, the pain left him with little choice. Donny had always been known for his determination, for pushing forward no matter the obstacle. And so, in January of 2019, he took the leap. Surgeons operated on both his back and his neck, carefully working to relieve the pressure and repair the damage that had built up over decades. The operation itself was considered successful, and in those first few days, there was cautious optimism. Doctors believed that with proper recovery, Donny could regain his strength and return to doing what he loved. But the real challenge had only just begun. Recovery was far more difficult than anyone expected. Instead of immediate relief, Donny found himself facing new struggles. He began to experience numbness in his body, and weakness in his arms made even small movements difficult. For someone who had always been so strong and active, this was devastating. The man who once commanded stages with endless energy now found himself fighting to regain even basic mobility. Rehabilitation became his new performance. Day after day, he worked with doctors and therapists, learning how to move again, how to rebuild the strength that had been taken from him. Progress was slow, and the uncertainty weighed heavily on him. Would he ever be able to perform at the same level again? Would his body allow him to continue the career he had devoted his entire life to? Donny admitted that the recovery process tested him in ways he had never experienced before. The physical pain was one thing, but the emotional toll was another. For the first time in his life, he had to face the possibility that his time on stage might be coming to an end. Not because he wanted it, but because his body was demanding it. Through it all, his fans remained by his side, offering encouragement and prayers. Messages poured in from around the world, reminding him of just how deeply he was loved. His family became his anchor, lifting him up on the hardest days and reminding him that his worth was not just in his performances, but in the man he had become. Yet, even with all the support and his own determination, Donny knew the reality. His health would never be what it once was. The years of endless motion had caught up to him, and his body was sending him a message he could no longer ignore. Slowly, the idea of farewell began to take shape. This wasn't just about one surgery or one setback. It was about a lifetime of giving everything to his career, and now having to face the cost. Donny Osmond had fought through anxiety, panic attacks, and the darkest mental battles. He had pushed through pain to perform for his fans. But now he was forced to confront a truth he had always tried to avoid. No performer, no matter how legendary, can stay on the stage forever. As Donny worked through the long, grueling recovery from surgery, he began to realize something that he had resisted for years. His career as he knew it could no longer continue forever. The endless tours, the constant performances, the nightly routines of singing, dancing, and giving every ounce of himself to an audience, his body could no longer keep up with that demand. It was a heartbreaking reality, because performing had been his life. From the time he was a little boy, the stage had been his home, the place where he came alive. To step away felt like giving up a piece of himself. But Donny had always been honest with his fans. He knew that if he was going to face this reality, he needed to share it with the people who had supported him for decades. And so, with a heavy heart, he announced what so many had feared. After multiple health struggles and a lifetime of giving his all, Donny Osmond was preparing for his farewell. The news stunned fans around the world. Messages of love, sadness, and gratitude poured in from every corner of the globe. For so many, Donny had been more than just a performer. He had been a soundtrack to their lives, a constant presence in moments of joy, love, and even heartbreak. The announcement wasn't just about an entertainer stepping back, it was about the end of an era. Generations of fans had grown up with Donny. They had watched him transform from a wide-eyed boy in the Osmond family to a teenage idol who stole hearts, to a seasoned performer who reinvented himself time and again. Through it all, he never lost that spark, that unique ability to connect with an audience in a way few others could. His farewell was not just his story, it was the closing of a chapter in the story of American entertainment itself. Yet, even in this farewell, Donny chose to focus not only on what was ending, but on what would remain. He spoke about the importance of family, of how his wife Debbie and their children had been his foundation through every high and low. He reflected on the battles he had faced, the anxiety that once threatened to paralyze him, the surgeries that left him questioning his future, and he framed them not as defeats, but as tests of strength that shaped the man he had become. Donny made it clear that stepping away from the stage did not mean stepping away from life. Instead, it meant embracing a new chapter, one where he could be more present with his family, more mindful of his health, and more open to experiences that didn't require the constant demands of the spotlight. For fans, it was bittersweet. They wanted him to continue forever. But they also knew he had given more than enough and that he deserved peace, rest, and joy in this next season of his life. What stands out most about Donny Osmond is not just his talent, but his resilience. Few entertainers have navigated the kind of highs and lows he has, from being idolized by millions as a teenager, to fighting for credibility as an adult performer, to enduring panic attacks and physical pain that nearly ended his career. Through it all, Donny never let go of his connection to his fans. He shared his vulnerabilities, he admitted his fears, and in doing so, he showed that strength is not about never falling. It's about getting up every single time you do. Now, as he looks back on a career that has spanned more than half a century, Donny can rest knowing that his legacy is secure. His music, his performances, and his story will live on in the hearts of fans who grew up with him and in the new generations who continue to discover his work. His farewell may mark the end of an era on stage, but it also cements his place in history as one of the most beloved entertainers of all time. For Donny, the journey has been long, filled with triumphs and trials alike. And while this chapter may be closing, the love between him and his fans will never fade. His voice, his story, and his spirit will remain. A reminder that legends may step off the stage, but they never truly leave us.